So I was going to wait for the rest of the committee to be here, but it's 6:01, number one. And number two, our OPM, there was a rollover on 202, and he is stuck in that traffic. So he will be coming in at some point, hopefully soon. Right? What? Our owner's project manager. Yeah. So he just called and said he'd get here as soon as he can.
To interrupt, if people have a question, please go to the mic to be audible under you.
Hearing them. No, shoot.
Oh, that's cool. All right, so good evening. The West Street Building Committee is here tonight to present to you more information regarding what's going on with the West Street Building renovation and hopefully answer any of the questions that you may have. First, I'm going to give you some background on the need for municipal spaces and then talk about what the Select Board is proposing on the ballot and potentially a future special town meeting. Currently, Granby town offices are spread across various locations that are inadequate for their needs. These spaces do not allow for growth or expansion and were originally intended as temporary solutions. Key components of town government currently have no designated spaces in our facilities. For example, Veterans Service Officer, a town accountant, Human Resources, the Planning Board, and the Conservation Commission. Additionally, there are not dedicated meeting spaces within for the departments in their current spaces. While storage spaces are provided in both the annex and the COA, these spaces do not provide the necessary protection for important town documents, such as fire ratings, temperature and humidity controls, or even sprinkler systems. More importantly, the current situation at the annex is untenable due to the upcoming end of the current lease agreement. So the town is looking at the West Street building to remedy these problems. More specifically, the lower level of the West Street building, which is 22,000 square feet total, provides an opportunity to not only consolidate town offices, but also provide space for the missing departments, future growth, and public interaction. The complete West Street building was built in 3 phases throughout the 40s and the 50s and is total 44,000 square feet. It's a structurally sound building. There are improvements necessary to the current building. However, the costs to renovate are less than to build new. In addition to placing the municipal offices in the West Street building, the COA would also have plenty of room to relocate. Moving the senior center into this building would make things more efficient by allowing shared spaces like meeting rooms, multi-purpose areas, and restrooms. This change gives the COA more flexibility in their programs, increasing their current singular program space to 3. Plus, moving them out of the existing temporary building they are now in allows the town to sell that building, eventually adding it to the town's tax base. Finally, if the town decides to abate all of the building now, it prepares the entire 44,000 square feet for future use. So as the needs of the COA and other agencies within the town grow, that space within the building will be ready to be renovated. This allows the town to use the other unoccupied portions of the abated building for whatever it deems appropriate when it is ready to expand. Can you read my?
Yep.
So that's like a little background on the West Street building. So on April 8th, the Select Board decided to put a question on the general election ballot, which is May 19th, regarding whether to fund the renovation of the West Street building through a debt exclusion. A debt exclusion increases your municipal taxes for a set period of time to cover the costs of the project. When that financing bond is paid off, the tax increase for the project ends. Then at the April 9th Select Board meeting the next day, the board decided to bring forward to town meeting 2 less expensive renovation options for the West Street building if the vote passes on May 19th at the general election. So if the vote passes at the general election by a majority, we then will have funding for the project through a debt exclusion. But we have to go back to town meeting to get the appropriation for one of the different scopes. So the two renovation scopes that are now being offered, I call them option B and option C, are different than what was presented at the previous special town meeting on April 8th. First, both of the options will abate the complete building, the complete 44,000 square feet, so whatever part of the building is not currently renovated will be hazard-free and prepared for future renovation. So option B is the renovation of approximately 22,000 square feet of the building. And for those of you who are familiar with West Street, that is the first floor or the main floor of the building. The municipal offices will be in one wing, and the Council of Aging will be on the West Street side of the building. The cafeteria, the gym, and the kitchen will be used by the COA throughout the day. However, it is considered shared spaces with the community. We call this option, option B, the value engineering option because it is less renovation than that was previously presented at the town meeting and uses less expensive alternatives, but without sacrificing functionality. So, for example, to reduce the price, we reduced the windows by 50%. We reduced the number of interior partitions, making it more of an open floor plan. We changed some of the finishes and reduced paving and site work. So for option B, the overall cost was lessened, and the bond ask, the debt exclusion amount, would be approximately $6.3 million. So the handout that you have shows you the tax implication for the annual cost for various house assessments if option B is selected. So the bond issue is 6.25, and then you find your home value, and then you'll know annually how much your tax will increase. Now, the second option is option C, and that renovates approximately 12,000 square feet of the building. It is similar to option B regarding the municipal office spaces, but it differs in that there will be no COA, no gym, no kitchen or cafeteria renovation. Instead, those areas will be abated and prepped for fire suppression and ready for future renovation. Those areas, for the time being, will be walled off and are unavailable for use until the town decides to pick up that part of the renovation. So for option C, the bond ask, or the debt exclusion amount, would be $4.2 million. And again, the other side of the tax implication sheet shows you option C at $4.2 million bond issue and what that would cost you if that is the option that the town pushes through. Thank you. So depending on whichever option town meeting passes, if they pass any, will determine the amount your tax will increase for 20 years. The 20-year period is what our treasurer suggested he's going to look for. So neither of these options, however, option B or option C, will come to the town meeting floor if the ballot question on May 19th does not pass by a majority. So that is all the information that I wanted to bring to the floor today. Since we've had several meetings, I didn't want to repeat myself, and we really wanted to make this more of a question session for the public. So we are opening the floor up to any of your questions, if you have them.
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
It's an honor. Oh, and by the way, this is our owner's project manager, Neil.
Okay, so as far as this new proposal, the last one had 20 or 25 years. This one just has 20.
Right.
What was the reasoning for getting rid of the 25?
I think it's the amount of the bond. So if the bond was going to be over 10 million, he was going to look at the rate for 25 years, but under 10 million, he suggested it to be 20 years.
All right, but the last one was 8.
He's the one that provides us with those charts, so he was probably looking at both 25 years and 20.
Who's he?
Steve Nally, our treasurer.
Okay, all right.
He also said that he's at the coupon rate of 5.5, he's thinking that is high. He's hoping to be 4.5 to 5, but just is trying to give worst case scenario.
Okay. All right. So as far as these property values are concerned, you know, if we approve one of these things, and let's say our house is worth 250,000, let's say in 5 years it goes up to 400,000, does our taxes get adjusted, or are we grandfathered with the original value of our house?
Can anybody answer that?
Good question, but I would
Good
assume that
question.
because the debt exclusion is for this specific amount, it wouldn't go up, I wouldn't think.
But, I mean, you don't know, you don't know that for
I
sure.
don't know that for sure.
I believe that it's determined when the bond is issued for the project. Think of it like your mortgage,
Right,
right? When you finance the project, it's financed at a certain amount for a set term at a certain percentage return. That does not change as your house value changes. So that sets, I believe that sets your rate.
and when would the bond be set?
So normally, the way that municipal projects are done is they take out short-term financing arrangements over the course of construction. And then when the final value of the project is determined, a bond issuance is granted, and then it's funded for 20 years thereafter. The reason being is that you can't overfund a public construction project. So they have to know exactly what the final cost will be, and then they can arrange for finance.
So are these numbers accurate then?
Those are estimates based on the estimated project value as we know it today.
Right.
And the estimated bond rate, which is a market condition and subject to fluctuation.
So based on what's going on right now with tariffs and everything going up or whatever, so there's a good likelihood it's gonna be higher than this.
On the contrary.
Actually, the market may indicate that the bond rates are actually gonna fall.
And tariffs, we're not dealing,
If I knew that for sure, we wouldn't be here tonight.
So that's why Steve put a higher coupon. He thinks it's going to be lower, but he put what he thought would be the worst case scenario. And then go ahead, what you can say about
I was
tariffs.
gonna say, I believe Tim could answer this too, but during the last meeting, we asked the same question about items with tariffs. Most of this stuff is gonna be stuff from here in the United States, and the tariffs should not be affected, correct?
Correct.
And so you said he shot high on this.
Mm-hmm.
So what's more realistic to be that number? 4.5?
4.5 to 5 is what he told us at a meeting.
And he's meeting with the bank.
Yes.
Yeah, that's something he negotiates down the road. So the ask for this is obviously now, but the bond, so we would go through what's already been appropriated, the 5 million.
5.6.
So we'd be halfway through the project before this actually even kicked in. Even though it's appropriated, but we wouldn't be taking out a short-term loan on this amount until we went through the initial amount that's cash available.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the project comes to a completion, then they bond it. So by the time we get into this, whatever option we go, whether it's the 6.25, 250 or the 4.2, we probably wouldn't even touch that until 8 months into the project.
And on the bottom of both of these, it's got, you know, total cost, ATM, what's ATM allocation?
Well, it should say STM, special town meeting. So the 5.6 million is what was allocated to the project in December of '23. So special town meeting voted to put forth 5.68 million.
Yeah.
Total cost for option, well, B is 13.9 minus the special town meeting allocation minus the stabilization funds that are available. So the bond ask comes down to 6.249, blah, blah, blah.
And there's no more in the stabilization fund that can be put towards this? Or how does that work? You're saying 2 million, is there more there that can be?
There may be more by the time we come around to using it, but at this time, there isn't. So we're talking, if everything goes through between the ballot and town meeting, and this project kicks off, we're talking, what did we say, December 26 by completion, somewhere around
Plus or minus, yeah.
yeah, plus or minus.
Yeah.
So by the time we go through all this, there may be another million available that, of course, would have to go back to a town meeting for a vote to appropriate it.
So this will be up and running about January of '27?
Well, we said December 26, give or take a month or two.
And any kind of, if option B is what is passed, then we can hopefully sell what is town hall now, / COA. And they would apply that, at least that was our understanding, they would apply that towards the 6.2, so that would even be less.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to look at this and I'm saying to myself,
Bless you.
well, do you want to take the cheap route or do you want to take the more thorough route and get it all done? Because if you go the cheap route and then you want to go in later, you know, it's going to be higher. But, you know, obviously, I don't want to bring up ancient history, and there was a building that was available way back when, and I don't know why we didn't jump on that. That was
Like you said, ancient history.
lot better shape, so, and I,
Let's not do it twice.
well, and then I guess my only other thing is, maybe you can explain to me exactly how this ballot question, because sometimes those things are, you know, you think you're voting yes and you're voting no, you're voting no and you're voting yes, so maybe I can get some clarity on that.
Do they have it?
I do have it. So the ballot question says this: shall the town of Granby be allowed to exempt from the provisions of Proposition 2.5, so-called, the amounts required to pay for the bonds issued in order to pay for hazardous materials abatement in the 44,000 square feet West Street building and the renovation of plus or minus 22,000 square feet for municipal space, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto? So what does that actually mean? And if you say no, a no vote means you do not support funding any renovations to the West Street School building and the project is dead. A yes vote supports temporarily increasing your property taxes through a debt exclusion to fund the renovations. This tax increase would only last until the project's bond is paid off. If this question passes by a majority, the town will then secure the funding for the renovation. But the select board then has to call a special town meeting to present the two updated renovation options for town meeting's final decision for the appropriation of the money. So, and these two options, as I said earlier, differ from the renovation that was rejected on April 8th. So a yes vote means you're willing to go to town meeting and discuss two options, and you're willing to fund it through a debt exclusion.
And no, it's dead.
And if you vote no, it does not go forward.
We'll be talking about this again in a year or two or whatever.
If no is the selection, yes, because what are the options that we have for the future?
I'm kind of monopolizing this, but just the last thing, I mean, in the back of my mind, it's like, okay, we do this, and then what's next coming down the pike for this town?
I think basically that would be the high school at that point. I think Micheline talked, that's if they do it, sir. I'm just saying. You know, they started with, Crescent Street, building a new highway garage. Then we moved over to public safety and we built the new public safety complex. And then,
The library,
the library, then the East Meadow School.
which leaves
Town offices.
two things left, town offices and the high school. And town offices are much more cheaper right now.
You know, high school's gonna happen at some point.
I don't know.
Got it, right?
I don't know
$1 million to replace a roof, I mean, come on. You know? I'm glad I'm not attending classes in here.
They're also, they're, you know, they're there's different talks about regionalization and all this other stuff. We have no idea about that, you know?
Yeah, we weren't.
That being said, no, I appreciate all the information, so, like I said, it's a tough decision, so,
Oh, absolutely. Glad people are coming out to try to get the information.
yeah. Okay, all right, great, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, come on up.
But I think it's more, we can hear, but that way the camera hears, so people can hear the questions.
Rich Demaraki, Bachelor Street. I had a few questions. Did you ever find out if this was a prevailing wage job?
It's definitely
It is.
prevailing
It
wage.
is. Okay. I found it interesting that the cost of option B and C is a lot more than what option A was originally. You're shaking your head, no. Option A originally was valued at 5 million. These two are valued at a lot higher.
No, no,
No,
no,
no, no, no.
Option A was valued at almost $15 million.
Well, originally, I'm talking about the original amount.
No, when we went to special town meeting, option A was 15 million.
Before the special town meeting.
The original
The
5.6
original, right.
million.
That was again explained several times. That
I know.
We went and estimated it ourselves. We didn't have any money to put into funding. And we did the best we could with what we had between people volunteering and walking through with.
Yeah, I just made a comment.
Oh,
that's
no,
all.
no, I just want people
But
to,
that was not option A.
Don't confuse option A with what the original
Yeah.
ask was.
that's all I'm trying to say. Option,
Option A was, we had A, B, and C. Option A was over, right around 15 million. The option, when we first came, was the 5.6.
Right.
That was not option A. Option A was the 15 million. So don't confuse those. The original ask was for 5.6.
That's right.
There was no other options. That was it. That was the original ask.
and then when we brought, we walked through with the old fire chief and the old building inspector, and they said, as long as things were okay with the architect, they'd be okay with us just doing certain things. Well, once we found out the value of this, once you spend $5 million, you have to hire a project manager, you have to hire an architect. Well, the architect knew all the ins and outs. We didn't know that doorways need to be changed because of handicap access and all of that stuff. And once you hit that threshold, the floodgates opened.
Right.
Thus, the 15 million, the 13 million, and the
11.
11 million in rough numbers.
Okay, what happens if this gets approved by ballot, which is 50% plus one, and the $2 million is a 75% vote at town meeting? What
No.
happens if that, for the 2 million you want
For free cash.
from free cash? That's not
No,
50%.
from the two stabilization funds.
Stabilization.
Yeah, it's called
Yes, right.
stabilization.
It's all part of the same question. So either,
It's not part of the same question.
No, it is. It is. At the ballot box, it's a majority. And then it goes to town meeting and it's 2/3.
but
Right.
2/3 would be all of it.
Yeah.
It would be, if you want option B, it would be all spelled out, that we would take the whatever's left of the 5.686, 639, and then, don't forget, 3 million of that's been moved to another account to knock the building down at this point.
Right.
So we'd say 2.686, 639 coming from here, the $3 million coming from that other account, the $2 million coming from the stabilization funds, leaving a total ask for a bond of 6.2 or
4.2.
4.2, and it would all be part of the same question, unless people
Right.
change.
Okay, there may be a legal issue involved here, because normally when you take money out of stabilization fund, it's not 50%.
It's 2/3.
It's 2/3.
The whole thing passes by 2/3. We
And a
don't
special,
take it out.
and a special town meeting.
know.
And a special town meeting vote to have a tax override is the same 2/3.
Okay, but what I'm telling you is you can't, let's say at the ballot box, you get 51%, it passes.
Right.
That does not mean that does not authorize you to take 2 million out of stabilization
Right.
fund.
It just,
We
it
realize that.
doesn't authorize, it just authorizes us to bond a certain amount of money to be determined at town meeting.
Right, right.
A special
it.
town meeting.
So what's the question, Rich?
The question is, when you read the ballot question, it mentions stabilization fund, does it not?
No,
It doesn't, not at all.
no. it says, and this ballot's been passed, this question's already been passed by legal, and this is what's on the ballot already.
Yeah,
Shall the town of Granby be, and also, it's been drafted pursuant to Mass General Law. I
Right.
can give you the actual law. This is how it's supposed to be drafted. You don't put money amounts into this ballot question. But shall the town of Granby be allowed to exempt from the provisions of Proposition 2.5, so-called, the amounts required to pay for the bonds issued in order to pay for hazardous materials abatement of 44,000 plus or minus square feet of West Street building, and the renovation of 22,000 plus or minus square feet for municipal space, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto. So it's just asking, will the town allow the West Street building to be renovated through a debt exclusion?
now, I think one hangup might be is that question right there mentions the 44,000 abatement. And most people voted no at the special town election about abating the entire building, didn't they?
No, at the special town meeting, the question was for option A, which is abatement of the whole building
Right.
and renovation of 22,000 square
Right.
feet. That was declined.
Right.
Now what's coming back is either option B or option C, but both those options are with abatement of the whole building. So it's a different ask.
That's exactly my point. The article, the statement that you just read for the ballot doesn't correspond to C, to B or C.
Yes, it
talks about-
does.
It talks about A.
No. B or C both mean abate the whole building, but B is with the COA and municipal offices,
Yeah,
which is 22,000 square feet. C is prepping the COA area for future renovation, but just putting the municipal offices in.
but in both cases, it's to abate the entire 40.
Yes, the select board decided that they wanted the whole building abated. On the,
Okay, I
Ninth.
thought there were some people at the special town meeting who did not feel that the entire building should be abated. That would save some money.
I don't know that. That was not
There
a
was
question.
a lot of opinions on town.
Yeah.
board,
Yeah.
But the select board is where we get our orders from, and this is what they asked us to do.
So when we came back to the select board meeting, we asked them what they wanted us to pursue, because as you found out, we found out at town meeting that it was going on the ballot. That's when we found out. So we had to go back to the select board and say, okay, well, option A has been declined by the town, so what's our charge? What are we doing, if anything? And that's when they said, well, we want you to go forth B and C and abating the whole building.
Right. Okay, the last point I'll bring up, I talked to Chris Martin about this, and he agreed with me that nowhere's in here is the interest factor, is the amount that the people have to pay in interest stated at all. So, for example, on the 6,250,000, there's roughly $4 million of interest that people have to pay that they weren't told about. And if you look at the other option, the 4.2 million, there's roughly $3 million of interest. That amount, both those interest charges are, they don't appear anywheres.
It appears in the 5.5 or they know 5.5 is the interest.
They know the interest percentage.
They know the rate.
They know the rate, correct. I'm just saying, that's all I'm saying is, nowheres are the taxpayers told there's a several $million interest charge that is being, everybody assumes they know, and no one has to tell them.
Nobody's saying we're not telling them, we're telling, you can see it's gonna cost the town $522,996
A year.
a year
For 20 years.
for 20 years.
Right.
Do the math.
That's what they have to do. They have to do the math. I'm just saying it would be clearer it would be better if people were just told that.
Well, we can try to ask this, this is what the town,
I think the other.
treasurer gave us.
I think the other factor too is the assumption that the loan goes full term.
Yeah, right.
If the loan is retired early,
It's
then
less.
obviously there's a big savings in interest rates, and that's something that may not happen for 10 years or 15 years.
Or it may not happen at
If
all. Yeah, right.
So-
I just thought it would be helpful
Yeah.
if people knew that.
No, there's interest associated with any loan.
Yeah, right. I thought that was interesting that it's real money that has to be paid out by taxpayers,
Right.
but it's kind of like pushed aside. So that's the only statement I have. Okay, that was it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Come on up.
I don't have a question, I would just kind of like to make a statement, would that be okay?
Sure.
I apologize, my pass is gonna be that very good. So I'm Amy Gay, I live on Bachelor Street, but I am also the activity nutrition coordinator at the senior center. So dear Town of Granby residents, for the last few weeks, I've been sitting back keeping my opinions and ideas about the entire West Street building uproar to myself. After attending the meeting on March 25th and witnessing and hearing some comments made by people in town, I really wanted to stand up and be the voice of the COA, but I knew it wasn't the time or place. People were just talking over each other, and some people were laughing at others' comments and ideas. It was truly embarrassing to witness. Knowing these people are in our community and think so little of the town's seniors is very disgusting. Some people were arguing over what age group deserves more money being allocated for their needs. An example, New School versus West Street, and everything in between. People could have argued for hours over it. While everyone is entitled to their opinion, they're not entitled to say what age group deserves more. Everyone deserves something, but the fact is, it's just not possible or affordable. Due to a prior commitment I had made, I was unable to attend the meeting on April 8th, but I was able to see it on the YouTube channel 15, and it was concerning to me. Someone suggesting Granby seniors leave their hometown to attend other surrounding COAs didn't sit well with me. It made me think our town may not understand what exactly our senior center does or is about. So I'd finally like to use my voice and stand up for our seniors. Yes, the very same seniors who were there to support and vote for East Meadow School years ago. Have you ever been to the Granby Senior Center? And no, I don't mean when you walk through to go upstairs. I mean, have you ever come in to take a tour, see what we're about and what we do? Well, if not, please listen closely because I'd like to tell you what we do. Just because when you walk through it looks empty doesn't mean people don't utilize the center. We have many daily activities. Some activities are more popular than others. Healthy Bones and Balance is probably the most popular attended activity. It's held 3 times a week. While our winter classes don't have a huge crowd, the warmer months prove it to be more popular. In August, we had 257 seniors attend the class. Activities aren't the only thing there. We have the food pantry, which is accessible to not only seniors, but anyone in town that qualifies for it. They get to come and pick out food from the pantry. They get 2 bags of groceries a month, 2 fridge and freezer items a month. We try to keep the fridge and freezer stocked with other items to help out. Continuing on the subject of food, we also have the brown bag once a month, which is another bag of food. It is supplied by the Food Bank of Western Mass. We also have once a month produce from Neighbors Helping Neighbors. Again, it's not limited to just seniors, but anyone that qualifies. And we have many families and seniors in Granby that rely on this to eat. One of our drivers also does a pickup of bread and baked goods from Chicopee Stop and Shop every Monday. They've been beyond generous with their donations. They set aside all the weekend products that didn't sell. When the donations are brought back to the center, they're put on the table for our seniors to choose an item or 2 for free. We also have the lunch program there. It is through Access Care Partners, formerly Western Mass Elder Care. The caterer is Delaney Market. Every Monday through Friday, we serve lunch at 11:30. For some of our seniors, it's the only meal a day they eat. There's a very low cost for the meal and it is anonymous, so those who cannot afford to pay don't have to worry about being able to pay. Thanksgiving, we worked with many groups in town to make sure seniors got a full meal or basket depending on their situation. The COA also has a thrift shop, library, and puzzle library. While it may seem like no big deal, it helps many seniors in town. The library and puzzle section is very popular for our homebound seniors, which brings me to the next very important service, and it is vital to the Granby Senior Center, our transportation services. We transport Granby seniors to medical appointments, shopping, errands, treatments, banking, veterinarian appointments, beauty salons, you name it, as long as it's within our operating hours and we have the availability on the transport schedule. We currently have 2 drivers and still have an opening for a 3rd. Another service the Granby COA provides is the SHINE program. This program helps with getting our seniors appropriate services such as fuel assistance, Medicaid, Medicare, SNAP, and many other services they may qualify for and not know about. Our SHINE coordinator has also helped seniors with little things that aren't part of the SHINE program, such as billing issues, spam, scam, emails, mail, applications for different services, or just reassure them that we are at the COA and care and help. Do you know about the medical equipment loans? We have multiple pieces of medical equipment there that we loan out free of charge. Walkers, rollators, commodes, wheelchairs, canes, grabbers, and more. Some seniors don't qualify for free medical equipment and can't afford to purchase any. With this program, we're able to help many seniors borrow items needed. Some need them for recovery after surgery. Some items are needed because they're on hospice. The reasons are endless, and really the reason shouldn't matter. All that matters is the equipment is there for them to access. Another thing our center keeps in stock is the incontinence products. We have many donors to help keep these items stocked. These products are very expensive, and some seniors have to choose between paying for medication or these types of products. Every month, we try to provide a free and fun meal activity. Some examples are a 100th surprise birthday party, ice cream socials, pizza parties, the Fall Fest, scam presentations, and musical entertainment as well. Foot care is another important service we offer. We have someone come in twice a month for seniors to have work done on their feet. This is a huge cost some seniors just can't afford to pay at a podiatrist's office. On top of all these things, we are also actively helping and assisting homebound seniors. It might be something as simple as homemade cookies being delivered around the holidays for a wellness check to call in. The Granby COA also works with the Granby PD on sand for seniors in the winter months, and we also work with them on lock boxes for homes in case the police department needs to gain entrance in an emergency, and also the street number signs. We also have File a Life on hand to give seniors. When people suggest our seniors just go to another senior center, it's not that easy. We encourage all seniors from every town to go center hopping. This means find what you enjoy and go to that center. We have lots of people that attend the Granby COA from other towns because they like the small community and we bond with them. With that being said, all other centers limit their activity numbers to their town residents first, meaning when a specific activity happens, town residents of the center have first dibs on the sign-up list. Therefore, out-of-town residents, Granby, will not be able to take part in such activities if they're full. I have been only working there for 10 months, and in those short 10 months, I've met some amazing people. Some of these seniors are now family. A few months ago, we had a senior come in who had just had multiple tragic events in their life happen. They were in a very lonely place, quiet and shy. Now they're thriving and have friends, otherwise known as their now family, that they made at the senior center. There are lonely seniors who have no family at all. They go there for meals and end up making friends and family. They know they can count on us and other seniors. We're a close-knit community that constantly supports each other. Everyone had the option to join this committee years ago. The offers were there and no one chose to join or help. Everyone is quick to complain and come out with better ideas. slamming the committee for all their hard work. This is exactly why people in town don't want to join any group or committee. All the hard work and lengthy hours people put in for research and meetings and try to do what's best for our town, only to be yelled at, disrespected, and told their work means nothing. Again, yes, we have the right to our own opinions and not agree, but this is so much more than that. I apologize for the length of this, but I felt the need to stand up for our seniors and to thank the committee for all the long hours and hard work they have put in. It is truly a thankless job. Whether or not you agree with the committee and their ideas, they did the work. And they have the town's best interests in mind. Again, I'm not here to try and tell you how to vote. That is your choice. I'm here to explain why making our seniors leave their hometown is just not an option. And it's some absurd suggestions. Our seniors deserve more. Thank you.
Thank you. That was very persuasive for option B and the need for the COA. Come on up.
Robin Sedgwick, Harris Street. I just have a couple things I need to clarify because every time I get here, I get more confused
Sure.
than I was when I started. And I think part of that is that my math brain doesn't work the same as all yours. But first of all, just want to clarify, if this is voted down, the senior center stays where it is. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Well, I say,
well-
but it's not really our charge. I said that they're
No,
talking about it.
I'm just saying that it's not like the senior center is going to go away. It's going.
Well, we can't tell, actually, to be honest with you, I should have said correct, that they had a couple different ideas that were bouncing around at our last joint meeting. They don't know what they're gonna do.
There's been discussion of building, that's the lower space out for offices.
Okay, but it's not going to be eliminated.
The building won't be eliminated.
The Council on Aging will not be eliminated.
Well, I don't know what they would do if they filled it, if they took the space that the Council on Aging is using currently, and if they use that for offices, then I don't know what the answer is to your
Okay,
question. 'Cause
so-
they have talked about.
So there's a unknown there. Okay.
That's actually a question for the select board.
Okay, thank you. So the next question that I have is, way back in another meeting, which I don't think went back to 23, but maybe it did. Is there still COVID money in the town?
That's
Being used for this project.
Okay,
It's
there
been
may
moved to
be a
that
problem with that because I know South Hadley had a problem with that it couldn't be used and they had to pay a penalty. So you might want to look into that. That's all I know.
No, it's already been pushed forward
been
into this
allocated.
project. It's been allocated, so it's there.
I understand that, but I understand that it's also, I know that other towns have gotten in trouble for not using it as the designated purpose. So I'm just telling you that. The third question is, what date was the actual current ballot question created?
Let's see, on April 9th at the select board meeting, they were discussing it. And then it would have been that next week where it was drafted with legal. And it was sent to Kathy Kelly Reagan for the ballot on, she had to have it by a certain date, which I think was April 17th,
Had
but
to be approved by then, yes.
had to be approved by
What was the question again now?
What
April.
was the date?
What was the date for
The
what?
ballot question was actually created.
Oh, the ballot question.
It was,
Well, we were
the
told they
ballot
discussed-
question was created between the 9th and the 17th.
Well, no, we were told they were gonna go with a ballot question on the 8th, that they decided, I don't know. if that
I
was-
thought you meant the actual drafting of it.
The drafting.
Okay, so on the April 8th select board meeting, before our town
Before
meeting,
the town, okay.
the select board had a meeting and signed the paperwork to have a ballot question. And then the next day on, for the next week, that ballot question was drafted by the TA and town council.
So was that ballot question drafted with the votes in mind? The April 8th votes in mind?
No.
So
I mean-
they made it, the night of the meeting, the town meeting, earlier that evening, they voted to have a ballot question. After the town meeting, sometime afterwards, is when they formulated the language for it. Does that answer your question?
So I think, so the next day after the town meeting, they said they decided to put it forward to the whole town because they didn't think that only 250 people should have decided whether or not to renovate West Street building. What those 250 people decided, however, was not option A.
Okay, what I understand that, at least I understand from the meeting, that the question was, will we allocate the funding for versus the ballot question of can it be done and will there be the proposition override? With that in mind, though, the ballot question as it's written and as you read, basically you have a significant amount of people who voted down the 15 million. And a majority, I believe, that voted up the other question about the abatement. So you basically, as I said, my math brain is different than your math brain, but it appears to me that it's very confusing because what it seems to do is it seems to combine the two questions and into one ballot question. And I think.
You mean the two options?
The two, well, yeah, well,
So-
it
so
combines what
To
you,
clarify one item for you.
yeah,
So the first question, which was voted down, as you
Right.
say, is option one, which was the full renovation for the 15 million.
yep,
The question that was upvoted, so to speak, isn't, while it includes abatement, it was to allocate the money specifically for raising the building, to
Right.
knock it down.
right.
Just
So-
to clarify that piece.
No, I do understand that. And that, so they voted to allocate that 2 million or 3 million or whatever it was. So, I mean, I think it's very confusing and I think it's very unfair to the voters because number one, speaking of the Council on Aging, the Council on Aging newsletter came in and, you know, I mean, my understanding of what happened at the April 8th meeting, and again, as I said, I mean, I understand that they can come back and they can do this in perpetuity until it passes and everybody, you know, just basically, it doesn't make any difference how we voted. But I think that it's very confusing when people didn't want to allocate the money for one purpose and did, for the purpose of the renovation, did want to allocate the money for the raising and the abatement. And then on the Council on Aging newsletter, which has nothing to do with you guys, I'm sure, but, and probably not you either, but it basically says that, and I wish I would have brought it, basically says, you know, we're voting to renovate for the most part, and renovate and abate, and which again, you know, I mean, I don't know. I just, there's something that just doesn't sit right when you go to a town meeting.
Because
and-
I understand what you're saying. I think to the select board's defense, what they would say to you is, we heard you. We heard you that you don't want to renovate West Street for 15 million. But guess what? There were other options we could have chosen a few months ago, the West Street that our committee brought forth. We thought 15 million was the best thing at the time. Now we see the town doesn't want that. So we would like to bring two more options to the town to decide, because we feel that something has to be done. Well, something has to be done because we are losing the annex.
I understand that. So what you're saying now is you're saying that instead of 15 million, it's basically 11 million and 9 million.
Yep.
Okay. And that wasn't clear, and that's not clear on the ballot. And so.
Well, I don't know, the ballot question,
No. I understand. I'm just saying that.
I don't know how else to make, I can't make the ballot question clearer because that's pursuant to law, the way it was
I'm just- As I
drafted.
said, I mean, I'm somebody who's college educated and I'm not, well, I don't think I'm stupid, but I'll tell you one thing, it's been like running around chasing a tail to
Well,
try.
that's partly why we're having
try
these
to figure
informational
this
meetings,
out.
so people can ask these questions, and we can try to answer the questions the best we can with what we have.
Yeah.
Okay.
I completely understand what you're saying. I mean, we're a committee, we can't tell you to vote yes. We can't tell you to vote no. We
No,
can just,
no,
yeah.
I completely understand. So my last question, I guess, is that, out of all of this and all of this new proposal, there's still no talk about raising the building and potentially putting up some prefab or some general steel building that would be, much more bare bones, but you could furnish it inside.
So we have brought that up, or not we, people have brought that up at other informational sessions about how much would it cost to build prefab, bring prefabs in. So even though that really wasn't our committee's charge, we did come up with some quick analysis of how much that would cost. And I think that Neil could actually vouch for this,
But I think, before you say that, I think that at the town meeting, they said that they hadn't really seriously considered it. So whether you came up with a,
right, and since then, because that was a question that came up at town meeting, the select board had asked us to look into that also. So that was part, and sometimes that question comes up during these meetings, and so our OPM and our architect looked into that for us to get us ballpark figures as to how much that would cost, and I'll let him speak to that.
So we're doing an addition, freestanding modular school project for community in the northeast part of the state. That project is roughly 10,000 square feet and came in at $6.5 million, round numbers. So it's about $650 a square foot. It was a two-story building. It included a connection to the existing school. So it's not quite apples to apples to what we're looking for, but from a square foot cost basis, we estimate that you would be in the range of $550 to $650 a square foot for a new modular prefab building project at that current site.
Plus the cost of raising what's there.
Plus the 3 million of abating and raising.
Sure.
And does that 650, is that just construction costs, or does that include the soft costs of the OPM and the architect?
That was just construction costs.
so, and again, this is the last part, but this is the issue that I guess I have, is that, all of this is, and I don't disregard the fact that I'm sure you're an expert in whatever you're doing, and that information is valid, but there's nowhere that you get anything except word of mouth on that kind of thing. It's like, it's the same thing as, I think 2018 was that report, and people walked through, and people told you this, and people told you this, and there's no place where, and forgive me if it is someplace in town hall, because I didn't go look, and I apologize if it is, but there needs to be something in writing when you're talking about this kind of money, and when you're talking about this level of detail, to have somebody just say, well, we did this and we think this is not good, or we did this and this is too expensive. It just really, you have to have people be able to go and look at this in order to get transparency. And that's, and I know if there's.
The only answer we can give you for that is we meet with the select board, and they're public and they're taped. And so the documents that we bring forth to them are open meeting and are.
Okay, well,
So-
I mean, and that's what I'm saying. I mean, if there are documents, and if those documents show, why we should be voting a certain way, or what the issues are, then.
So we bring it to the select
Yeah,
board, and they
sure, if
make the
that's the
decision for
But-
us to present certain things to you.
No,
yeah.
and I understand it, but, and I'll be more, involved in the future, but I can tell you, it's just, as I said, it just feels like there's no transparency with all.
I disagree with you. There's been
Okay,
plenty- There's been plenty of transparency, including the fact that the select board had assembled a previous building committee to tear that building down and build new.
Right, which nobody regarded, which they decided not to do.
They decided they wanted to
Right,
see what
and
this,
then that was based on on people coming up and saying, informally walking through the building and informally.
No, there's formal studies for that, because we used those studies for this project.
Okay, well, if that's the case, are they in the town hall?
The studies are in, yes.
Okay,
Yep.
then I apologize, but,
Yeah.
but again, there are other people probably who haven't seen it either, so, I mean, you could hopefully, we can all learn from this process, but,
It's knowing where to find the information, absolutely. But it's also trusting the people who are been charged to do the job, that they're doing the job correctly.
well, I can tell you one thing, if what happened at that town meeting, which said that the selectmen, you can have something earmarked for a specific project, and the selectmen can turn around, and this is nothing against.
So that was the
anybody,
finance committee, that wasn't your select board that said that, but yes.
No.
I know what you're gonna, the finance committee did
But they
say.
did, yeah, okay, so, and
Yes.
I'm just saying that, and that causes concern too. So, I mean, people vote for all of you for not, well, I mean, I know you were appointed, but,
Yeah.
people vote for representatives and they expect to have their voices heard. So, anyway,
Yes,
again,
that was.
that's my teeth, my soapbox. Thank you.
one more point to make, I think is important, is that in defense of the select board, them bringing this back for two other options, less expensive options, is basically better than saying, well, you either take this or nothing. And tear it down and that's it.
I appreciate it.
So they are giving you some other options. And then at the end of the day, you still decide that, then that's democracy. But right now, they're thinking, and I back them on this, is that, all right, they didn't like option A, and it may have been, it probably should have been presented a little differently, but we all learn as we go on. But you didn't want option A. I would be upset if we only got B and C and A never came. Let the people decide what they, A got tossed by, we say by the majority of the people. It was only the majority of the 250 that showed that evening. To bring it down to options B and C, we're giving the town other options to choose before a decision's made to raise the building, and then there's no going back. And I'd hate to say, well, why didn't you tell us we could have had this or this instead, in lieu of the option A? So I think what they're doing is exactly what they should be doing as far as the process goes. Getting the information out, whether it's this or any other project in town, is not easy. Look how many people showed up tonight. And we didn't have many more than that.
We had about this amount last week. I mean, at the original one, we had 70.
That's right. And we did not have GCAM here. So tonight we have GCAM, so hopefully this will reach more people.
Yep.
So,
There were a lot of different questions last week, so it's interesting to see the difference in questions. There is one next week at 4 o'clock. Yeah, next week, 4 o'clock at the COA. What day is it?
On Tuesday.
On Tuesday.
pardon me?
What?
Can I sneak in a few more questions?
Sure.
Yeah. I think you might.
You can be next, Rich.
I answered for the chair.
Where did you, at 17 Phillips Circle?
Please do.
You talked about this annex going away. What's the time frame on that?
That's what so there's been some discussion about the select board negotiating with them.
Technically, right now, the lease is up in June.
June of this
Technically.
year?
June of this year.
I believe what they're negotiating is extending the lease. It's not I don't believe it's to purchase the building. And I think there may be some misinformation out there that, well, they're negotiating and we're using this as a
Right.
scare tactic that we're gonna take the select board's gonna decide to put the offices in the council on aging. They may not have any other choice but to do that. I don't know, but that's a different.
Because we only own so many buildings. The town only owns so many properties in order for us to adapt for the town offices.
So the suggestion has been to move them out of the annex, put some here, and you see the space you have, and put some in the COA, until we can figure out the next step. What is that next step? Renovating West Street building? or abating, raising, and building new? What are the options that we have?
The owner wants to sell, but it sounds like there's been some decent negotiations that she's willing to extend,
As long as there's a plan.
as long as there's a plan and there's an end date.
Well, and the extension, the main reason they start the negotiations is that we needed more time. So if this project passes, we're not gonna have it done by the end of June or July. So that's part of where the negotiations started, is that if this goes through, we need more time to get the West Street School prepped for them. And they'd probably be some of the first people we put into the building as we make it ready.
Right.
I know we're going back into ancient history about 2018 and everything like that, but as far as you said there's really no other available buildings in town. But I know I mentioned to you, and you said it's way more costly to build a new building than to, fix up West Street School. What are we talking about for a new building? And is there any way that there can be some kind of a design that would, be kind of a state-of-the-art type thing that maybe we would get, more money from the state or something like that? Has that been looked at?
Well, first of all, and we brought this up before, we don't know that we're not gonna get any money from the state for the project as B and C is presented. We can't apply for anything until the town allocates the money. The state won't even talk to you. So to answer that question, if you decide to build new, the money has to be allocated before you can ask for anything. And the chances of getting something, whether it's new or renovated, our chances might be better off renovating an existing building than building new.
An existing brick building
Correct.
versus a stick building, number one. Number two, don't forget, back in 2018, the suggestion was to build two smaller buildings, 5,700 square feet each. And that, back then, total cost was 4.33 million.
Where were those gonna be? Do you have any idea?
At the West Street.
They'd have to, that didn't include, did that include raising the school?
So it would have been $890,000. This is in 2018. These are the quotes. $890,000 to remove West Street building, to abate and remove. Then to build two new, smaller buildings, which totaled 11,400 square feet. That would be 3.44 million. So the total cost between abating, raising, and building new was 4.33 million in 2018.
And what would that tear down amount be today?
The tear down amount today is 3 million.
Also the square footage calculated now of what is required or needed for each department is higher than what was done in 2018. We already outgrew the space for a new building that was designed in 2018.
Okay, so,
And it wasn't just people with wish lists.
No.
People had wish lists, but Tim and his firm came in, sat down with each department. They went and looked at what each department was working with now. What would you like? But also sat there and said, okay, well, here's where you're at. Here's what other things we've seen. So he didn't just say, oh, I want 10,000 square feet. You got it. And, I want this. So they call it programming, and that's what they did.
Yeah, it's a question of looking at number of employees they have now, how often they're in, what their hours are, even their part-time, what their hours are, how often are they in the space, how much interaction do they have with the public day to day, do they have people who wait in line to meet with them, do they have a need for privacy when they meet with people, as well as Lynn had pointed out before, there are currently multiple departments within the town hall municipal offices that, one, right now you have some where there are combined roles, i.e. Chris Martin and the accounting piece, which isn't going to be the case moving into the future. Those will turn into multiple roles, as well as roles that right now have no home. They borrow space essentially from others or spaces like this when they have need, but otherwise are working off-site.
And don't forget, if you try to move into here and the COA, neither of those buildings are equipped to be municipal offices. So there's a cost associated. You can't just move into this building. It needs to be updated. And the load on the COA to add more people will also require it to be updated. So it's not as simple as using the spaces that we currently own.
And currently, the planning board, conservation, ZBA, and other use this for their evening meetings. So by spreading the offices out, now we gotta find a place for all these other meetings to take place.
But I mean, if we went with, say, because you said it was gonna be a lot more expensive if we go this route, how much more expensive are we talking?
If you go new,
New construction. Part of that's going to depend on, which are multiple factors in it, if we raise the building or not, because that site, as we've talked in previous meetings, is one of the best here that we have available that the town already owns and will allow for a public water source, because we need to make sure that there's separation between the well and any development that goes there. So there is an option potentially, which granted hides the building behind, to put it in the lot behind the existing building and not raise it. That would obviously be your cheapest option. And kind of the two paths that you could go, one would be the modular route, which, as Neil had noted, is somewhere between $550 and $650 per square foot. That would give you an option that would give you space. However, if you've ever been in a modular building, they aren't meant to be a 20, 30, 40, 50-year building. Yes, you could go forward with a stick-built, wood-framed building. We very likely, based on conversations with the fire department, are going to need to sprinkler, no matter what we do, just because of it being municipal space. So at minimum, we're still probably going to be at the higher end at that point of the 650, probably 650 to 750 at minimum for new construction.
Same time for completion, either route?
We'd have to go, right now, we're ready to hit the ground running. We've advertised, we may have to re-advertise a little bit,
Yes.
but we got plans, we're ready to go. If we go a different route, whether it's modular or stick-built, we gotta go through a design phase and go through a process that's probably gonna take another 8 months, at least.
6 anyway?
Yeah.
before
what was
we-
it, isn't it about 3 years or 2 years that the module that you're working on?
Tariffs, well, I'm more concerned about escalation, regular inflation, escalation.
But you know, everything's up, you know, name your price.
Because this is right, we're ready to hit the ground now. And the other thing that wasn't mentioned, by building new, we'll just put the 5,000 to 10,000 square feet up. Well, okay, that'll put a Band-Aid on it for now. But there's another 30,000 square feet in an existing building that can be utilized down the road. Who knows what the schools are gonna need? They need a few more classrooms. Space over here can be built out to put their offices. I mean, I brought that up before too. It gives the town flexibility without having to dig as deep into the pockets down the road. You got a building there, use it. You just mentioned, I think you were alluding to the monasteries,
Yeah.
that we didn't do anything.
Yeah. I mean,
Right, wrong, or indifferent, I don't know what the conversation was back then, but let's not, if that was a mistake, let's not do it twice.
no, but I mean, you know, as far as, so if we go ahead with this, what kind of leverage do we have about keeping that town annex building going, where we don't have to come in here and tear this apart? You know, is there gonna be any leverage
There-
on that?
Again, that's the select board's negotiating that. I personally, I would feel pretty confident that they're.
She'll work with us.
She wants to work with us, but at the same time, she wants to sell it, but she's,
There's gonna be an end game. There's gonna be an end result, is what I've understood.
But from
You
what
know?
I understand, she's willing to work with the town and give us what we need if there's a future.
Right, but not much further.
Right.
See, on your comment before about getting stuff out or whatever, as far as to the community and things, I think, we're in the 21st century now. We have Zoom, we have different outlets rather than people coming out on a rainy, crappy night and sitting in front of you. They can be Zooming in there and then maybe there can be some interaction. I have that at work. When COVID happened, right? You just don't shut down. You have Zoom meetings. We've been doing these now for 3+ years. So I think we have to take it to the 21st century. That's an above and beyond that as far as these important meetings. Because, okay, we're voting for this. I mentioned the schools. That's coming down the pike, whether it's regionalization or whether it's a new school. And, what's that nut gonna be? This is a very tough decision on my part. I've heard both things, so. And you're right, you don't want to screw it up, but.
We have to do something, whether
No,
it's this or this. But if we kick it down,
I know.
when the other board, I was there when they presented to the select board, the other committee, to build new, I was for it. Because I trusted them at that time, and we were moving forward. We might be talking about moving a couple offices in someplace because it was under design, but it would have been off our plate, it would have been done. It's about progress, moving forward. There's no such thing as a perfect building project.
Right.
By the time you're done, if you built a house, by the time you're done, I wish I had done something a little bit different. It's just the way life works out. Your needs change over time. But we would have been done with it by now. But they chose not to do that. And as it turns out, I'm kind of glad they did, because I think this is a better option than what was presented then.
All right. Well, appreciate the extra.
Yeah, we have room for expansion. That's the biggest thing with this,
Yeah, you're right.
And we're still paying on a roof that we put on the building. We still, what, 160,000 on that?
Yep,
On what?
160,000.
160,000 on the roof that was put on in '07, I think.
West Street?
West
Yeah.
Street,
Yeah, West
yeah.
Street.
Which one was the $1 million roof? Was it that one or was it the high school? Or
I don't know, that 160 is what's left.
That's what's left on.
On that,
I think the high school one was $1 million. I don't know where, I think you're referring to another meeting we had, but we were told recently we owe 160,000 on that roof.
so we have to pay that off if we're gonna raise it. We have to pay that bond off, then abate, then raise.
The bond's not to end until 2029.
So you're on the hook for the 160 regardless.
Right,
You're right.
right.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Well, it is 7:15. I thank you all for coming. Hopefully we answered your questions.
Anybody else have? No?
Do you have a question, Mr. Peters?
Well, yeah, there are a couple things. I'll be fast. First of all, I said it to some of you before, I thank you for taking this project on. You think back to 2018, I know I had issues with the fact that a committee reported something, the townspeople knew nothing about that. They kept the lid on, and didn't communicate with the community. So I think, and 6 years goes by until you step forward to do something with this. To me, this is a no-brainer. This is a need we have in this town, and because the town has never had a strategic plan, as much as we want to say the high school's there, high school's another issue. That's a separate issue. It's nothing to do with you, nothing to do with me. We have an issue right now at our feet, and this is a need in our community. Why should we be the only community around where you gotta go to different places to do this? Why do we have to settle for that in Granby? I know there's a lot of excitement, December 2023, when we initially got this. There was a lot of excitement. And then you guys ran into what you ran into, unfortunately. It costs money to do these things. That building is a perfect building. I mean, it served this town well. I think we have to look at the history of it. How many kids have gone to school there since 1941? I was fortunate to go to school there. I was a teacher there, and I was a principal there. It's a great building. Just like the people who put East Meadow up way back in the day, we were able to add on to that building without knocking that down. That saved the town some money. It's in the center of town. It's a perfect location, plenty of parking, put everybody together. To me, it's just an absolute no-brainer that we need to do this. I think that these meetings are good. I think you need to open up the building. A lot of people have not been in that building. I think you need to have a session where people can go in, show them the building, where this thing gonna be. I think it'd be a big help for people changing their mind. Taxes or no taxes, it needs to be done. Is there a chance that there'd be additional money that could go into this? I know you don't know state grants, but doesn't the town have additional money that could come out after July 1st to help this project out? Has anybody talked about that yet?
I'm sorry,
Additional money
from the town?
from the town?
I don't believe there's going to be.
I thought I heard there's gonna be like over $2 million in free
I
cash.
think that's what they use to balance the budget this year, is the rumor I
Well,
heard.
That's what I heard too.
Yeah.
That's going to be used up in the June meeting.
It
With the
doesn't
schools and everything else.
It doesn't necessarily
And some
mean by the
capital.
time we actually pull the, sorry,
Yep,
it doesn't mean by the time we actually pull the bond in December of, or January of
Right.
'27, that there's not some additional, and we won't have to take the full, 6 million or whatever.
Because
Maybe it's only 4 and 3 at that
be
point.
another fiscal
Okay.
year.
And I've heard a few things about this, that there's no issue with the water there, correct? And no issue with the septic system,
Right.
Correct.
correct.
because I've heard some things out there. I just want to make sure that we know that, or other people hear this, so if we share information, people would know that there's not an issue there.
And there's no issue with air quality.
There's no mold.
Yeah, I agree. The question I would have, I'm sorry that A isn't being done, and what is when you talk about the future, there's like 12 additional classrooms here, including the learning center area auditorium. What do you mean by the future? When people use it, what do you mean by the future?
Depends on what the board of selectmen and the town comes together and realize what other offices or whatever addition they need.
Well, like Jim said, maybe, well, I know, it was, Tim Roberts, was at one of the first informational sessions and asked about possibly the superintendent's office taking three classrooms at the high
Roberts.
school. John Roberts, I'm sorry. And, yeah, if the town says it, yeah, okay, take 3 of those classrooms and move the super's office there, and now you've got 3 additional classrooms for the schools.
Or GCAM, or the rec department, or what's the future? The future is when the town has money to open up and start renovating the rest of those.
Or who knows what their state's gonna require for us to have for
I mean,
offices, you know?
someone last meeting suggested, or actually it was at a select board meeting, using that part of the building for businesses to raise money. That's always an option. It's whatever the town wants to use it for in the future. It'll be renovated, it'll be abated and ready.
Well, and again, some of that stuff, like you said, some of those small businesses, startup things, there are some grants out there for communities to do, so maybe we do something like that and they help pay to set it up, and the town's committed to letting small businesses be in there for whatever amount of time, and then we've gotten it renovated on the state, and then when the time is up, we can say, okay, we're gonna use it for our needs.
And what are the chances of opening that building up before the May 19th election?
I have been trying for that for months now, but
And what's the
we're running
reason?
into a liability problem. It's a liability
what?
problem. Liability.
Why is that a liability? Why is that a
You're asking
liability?
the wrong people.
Huh?
You're asking the wrong people.
Well, what could it be that we're not seeing?
Well, it's a construction site. It's an active construction site.
There's no construction going on there, right?
Not that I'm aware of.
I mean, can't someone say, well, you're walking in here, under your own whatever? What,
Sign a waiver.
but who
Are those
made
gonna
that decision? Who said you can't go in? The lawyers didn't say that, did they?
It's coming from legal, it's coming from
But don't you think it's a good idea?
I think it's a wonderful idea.
That's why
That-
we couldn't do that, that's why we did that little video.
I know, video is good, but if someone's never been there,
I
it doesn't
understand,
mean.
Mr. Peaches, but again, we were told no, so that's why we said, okay, let's try this. We're trying,
I will keep pushing for that,
Who
absolutely.
would I need to talk to? Because I think that's a real important item.
I would
Select board.
start with the select board and the town administrator.
Can the select board make that decision?
They're
That's,
the powers to be.
Right, because our town manager is not in place yet, right? She's not in place?
starts in
She's here on
June.
Fridays, yeah?
Well, this is before June, so, and our other town manager is an interim, right?
Right.
So it seems to me the selectmen have the most power here.
Well, it wouldn't happen though before the May 19th meeting, that's for sure. Ballot vote. It could happen between May 19th and the special town meeting in June.
I know, but the May 19th vote is the most important
I
one.
completely agree. We've tried to push this. We don't get anywhere. So you can try.
Well, love to try. I think it's a town building. These are the citizens. And I think there's a lot of history. People love that building. Some of you've always been there. So love that building, and it's well-built. And I think the people who have problems, regardless of money, need to see what you're doing here. And it's gonna put we owe this to our town employees, to put them together in one place. You know, they're all disjointed and never have any camaraderie and kind of thing, working for the same team. It's just a no-brainer,
Plus,
regardless
it's
of
just
the
cleaned
money.
up building.
Huh?
You know, cleaned up, newer facility for them. It's-
Absolutely. And it's gonna serve the future of our town for a long time. Perfect building. Anyway,
I'm sticking with this program because I believe in it. I believe this is our best option right now. A was better. B's and C it's got its downfalls. We'll be
Yeah, I don't
kicking
think-
we'll be kicking part of the can down the road.
yeah, I don't think we wanna cheapen ourselves to
But
do
if-
that.
But if you
know.
believe in it, you gotta talk it up. And if it goes to town meeting, it's the silent majority that typically doesn't, we need people to get up and speak. If you believe in the project, you gotta be convinced. We're trying to be convincing, but.
And you have been, for sure. I mean, you all live in town, I'm sure you were
My taxes are going up too. we better-
Right,
Yep.
exactly.
And I'm sure you were as disappointed as the rest of us when you found out the costs, you know?
Oh, yeah.
But we're lucky we have this 5.6 million that has been squirreled away and hidden away until it's needed. And now it's time for the town to step forward and put something for the future of our town. Perfect reuse of the building. I mean, that's what other communities do.
Yeah.
They're not knocking these buildings down, they're doing something with them. And I think we deserve to do that as well.
Right.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming out, everybody. Spread the word.
Have a good night.